Welcome back to Real Christianity with Rev Kev, as they say in our Indonesian village, yaki yaki. This is Real Christianity. It's just a little bit different setting. We have my friend Joel Carlson here with us. He's really fascinated and done some study on God's love. So welcome, Joel. And tell me, how do you define love? And then how does that affect from God's perspective?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I think one of the things that's really struck me about love in general is some of the teachings from our church. They define love as pursuing the greatest good for another person in spite of the cost to self. And you know that's really helped me actually as I've come to understand another part of their teaching on love, which is the difference between what they call transactional love and love. I mean, transactional love really isn't love per se, where you need to get something when you give something. Just the concept of a transaction. You buy some mayonnaise, you give them $1. When we are sitting here, in and of ourselves, I think we only have so much love to give. I think. We have a limited supply, and anything you have a limited supply of, you feel the need to kind of have this exchange. All right, I love you, but you're gonna love me, right? And yet, what we see, I think, in God's love is, He says, there is no greater love than this, that a man would lay down his life for his friend. How do you give your life and then get something back? There's nothing to get back, at least temporally, at least physically, right? And so, I think as we look at that definition again, of pursuing the greatest good for somebody else in spite of the cost to self, that's, I think, the definition of love that's really helping.
Well, our culture, we look at love so superficially. We see love, it's a hard concept to think that it's not transactional, that I love someone without getting anything in return. So what does God get from this, or if it's not transactional, tell me about this unconditional love that He has.
Yeah, I think God's love is so beautiful. It's hard to say that He gets, something. I think He does get things out of it. He doesn't need them, but He wants them. In many ways, I think, I didn't need to have children. I didn't have to do it, but I wanted to. I think in many ways that seems to me how God, approached creating everything and everybody. He wanted to, and so He did, and so He chooses to love us, I think, unconditionally, in the sense that He's just pouring out love. It says God is love. Right? There's no...
You had a great metaphor of that love.
Yeah. I think, when I think about God's love, to me, it's like they're one and the same with Him in the same way that heat is kind of comes from fire, and God is described in many ways, many times, as being fiery in various different ways on Mount Sinai, or in Ezekiel, this chariot, wheels of fire and different things, and it occurs to me, that almost is emblematic too of his love pouring out of Him in a way that can be even dangerous to those who haven't accepted His love. When somebody's pouring out their love for you and you don't kind of recognize it's nothing to you, that puts you in a dangerous place as a person, as a human, I think. And so, I think God is love, and He shows us something different than any of the so-called gods, than any of the who demand that worship, or else we're gonna lightning strike you. I think people think about God like that, and it's very unfortunate. Certainly He does judge, and I don't think it would be loving of Him to not do so.
I'm going to ask you more about that in part 2. So this has been part 1 of understanding God's love, and it is a little bit different setting for Rev Kev, but cool to have Joel with us. And if you could, hit the little subscribe button, the little bell for get a notification. And thanks again for joining us on Rev Kev. And as they say in our village, you remember what they say? Yaki yaki.